on the road again. I'm on the road.
How's it going, everyone? I'm back, still looking for the ultimate Vietnam game, and it is definitely a tough search. I'm kind of giving up on Fire in the Lake right now. I just don't find it with the bots interesting. And it's just kind of weird. Like, whenever I play the Americans, I don't really understand. Like, it's just odd having to go against the Arvin and be upset if they start to win. It's just weird. I just wish they had combined both sides. But I understand it's a coin game and it's meant for multiple players, and the diplomacy and the politics and stuff. It's just odd that, I don't know, it's weird playing it with the bots. So I'm going to move on. I need a more traditional Vietnam War game. I have Rumor of War by Compass Games. A little bit of a mess. Still going over some things before I try to learn anything in it. And that brings me to a game I've had for 5 years now. The 25th anniversary edition of Silver Bayonet with the solitaire rules, which I have printed out. But first, I thought I'd learn just the basics of the game. And it does come with these neat little scenarios, these starter scenarios, like these battle boards that you can play on. And I actually have 2 copies of this game, so I've highlighted this one. The other one's kind of pristine. I don't know how I got 2 copies. The scenarios are numbered in chronological order, and in order to gradually add size or complexity, you want to use 6A, 6B, scenario 3, 5, 4, 1, 2, 7. So 6A is our first one. This is basically an assault on this. The terrain is noted as tea plantation. Includes terrain which motorized units may enter. This one here. So, and with a road, of course. It's basically American headquarters unit, American artillery unit, and the brigade HQ, as it says here, it's defended by a provisional company made up of artillery, military, police, support troops, and anyone who could carry a rifle, being assaulted by a ton of VC. Pretty much every VC unit in the game coming down on this tea plantation here, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce at the moment because I'm too tired. It is a 1-turn little scenario. 6B is stretching it to 2 turns. The VC get to go first. It starts directly with a bombardment phase, and then you go to a coordination roll and a straight up assault combat segment. And the whole point is to capture this hex. And that's it. Whichever side holds the tea plantation after the assault phase wins. And in 6B, in 6A, the scenarios, they give you, like, the United States gets some air points here. So the U.S. gets some air points on game turn 25, which is all this is right here. They do get some air points, 10 of them, and they only have those 2 units. So it's kind of weird. So we're going to see how this goes. Bombardment rules are easy enough. What I need to understand is what can those air points do on defense? And I'm guessing that should I lose this hex, maybe I can use these to bombard. I'm not sure. I'll have to check and see what they do. But for now, we're going to go over the rules of this game. We're going to be hitting Eagles Dare up again soon toward the end of the week when I have more time. But GTS is pretty much what I'm focusing on right now. I'm still looking for a good Vietnam game. So in the mail, I have Strategy and Tactics magazine, Snoopy's Nose coming, and In Country. And then I also have Lock and Load. It started here. And I've looked at High Flying Dice Games, What Went Wrong. I have the Folio Case on, which is like a little card-driven game. And I have looked at Legion War Games. What else have I looked at? I think I have a reprint, an order in for the reprint of one of their games. I've been looking all over. And of course, there's the big one on the P500 list, the redo of Victory Games Vietnam. So it's a tough war game subject. And I'm not big on area movement, so I've been kind of like not doing the area movement games. I don't know, maybe I have to, but yeah, it's tough. All right, a little bit of magic here, and the board is suddenly set up for your viewing pleasure. All right, I believe that I have all of the counters that I need, all right, in order to play this first scenario. So 6A and B are the first recommended scenarios to play in Silver Bayonet. And if you're thinking that the counters look awfully familiar, you would be correct. This is a Mitchell Land production along with Gene Billingsley, who did the original game. And Mitchell is our friend from, as you might know, oh my goodness, sometimes these are too far away. Next War. And so the counters are, like, I literally looked at these and said, oh, I know exactly what the numbers are on these. You know, you really can't miss that. Let's see if I can, here's your next war counters, right? So I knew instantly that we had efficiency rating, stacking, and, you know, same old stats there. They're almost identical. So that was kind of cool. I looked at it and I was like, oh, I know this guy. He does next war. And Silver Bayonet has a few intricacies in it. I can see why it's complexity 6, I believe, on the scale. There are a few things that can trip you up in the rules here, and that is why they're doing these beginning scenarios. Now, 6A is one turn, okay? And the card will give you the counters and stuff for 6B as well, so don't freak out at the amount of Viet Cong on the board. You won't be using all of these, so... I've actually set this up how I want to do the first attack. Your stacking limit in a hex is 4. That's right there. So 1, 2 stacked right here, 1, 2 here, 4 here with an assault marker. The goal on this is to attack the tea plantation and take out the American 101st Airborne HQ and this artillery unit. It consists of just one, or just a few phases, right? You're going to have the bombardment phase, the offensive bombardment phase, okay? And that will follow some special rules, as only the Viet Cong get this mortar unit. There is a print, an errata on the printout here. It should be a matching mortar symbol, not artillery. So this should match that symbol. That is an errata that they put in there. And this scenario is just a offensive bombardment phase. There's a coordination roll, and then an assault segment. This is all by the People's Army Vietnam players. So this is all just one player, and the United States Artillery cannot fire their defensive bombardment during any of the assaults on the Brigade HQ hex. It is impossible to depress those guns to fire effectively at the short range. The Brigade HQ is defended by a provisional company made up of artillerymen, military police, support troops, and anyone who can carry a rifle. So this is very small, and then 6B expands it to 2 turns, as you see here, and adds more units. But we're really only focused with a few here, so we're going to have this one turn right here, and I've got the marker set up to show that it's their turn. We're not doing 6B. There are 10 air points here that the American player has that he can use in defensive bombardment. Again, you cannot use that unit. This is to show when the artillery fires, right, the target, and then there's a first fire and a final fire, but I'll get into that later. Okay, so this is a really simple scenario to help you kind of understand the assault phase. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more here. Make sure everyone can see that good enough. Yeah, so really simple stuff here. We have to go over a few things. And what I'm going to do, unlike normal, is I'm just actually going to walk us through this whole little scenario here and just kind of go over the rules. Coming with the game is these nice little tables. And I'm going to have to move this up, 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 like so. Assault combat table and the terrain effects. Keep a note on this terrain defense value. We'll be using that a lot here. And it's pretty much, and then you got your little bombardment table, which is a really simple table to use right there. And we don't need many tools other than that. I'm gonna see if I can get this camera down even further for you guys. There we go. All right. Everything good? Excellent. Okay, my light's giving me a little bit of trouble, but I think we're all right. Okay, I did get this new lighting system. It's like they're on like a, you know, grabber arm on the side there. Okay, and we have our sequence of play here, and there is a campaign sequence of play as well as some crib notes that tells you what to watch out for in all the units, which is nice. That way you don't have to go looking things up too much if you know the rules and how they're all set up. Okay, so let's look at offensive bombardment phase. I did this terribly wrong the last time I tried it. I had to actually do this video over because I screwed up. The game is going to start with a Viet Cong bombardment phase, and bombardment is covered in the main rule book, of course, page 14, part 10. A hex can only be bombarded once per offensive bombardment phase. Okay, now mortars. They have a mortar here. Mortars have special rules, which I believe are section. Yeah, I thought I knew it, but maybe I don't. 12.3 on page 17. Mortars are allowed to actually assault. Okay, this is the only side that has mortars. You can actually assault an attack with a mortar. Okay, and when that is the case, it uses bombardment strength as its attack strength. So interesting fact there. They can actually attack with these, but we're not going to do that here. We're just going to use them from bombardment. The stats on the counters are attack bombardment strength, the range, defense, movement allowance. Okay. If you're used to next war, you have your stacking points here and the efficiency rating here. All right. So attack, bombardment, range, defense, movement. Okay. Bombardment, pretty simple. All right. There's restrictions on artillery. Artillery units can move and or fire twice per game turn, but never more than once in a single bombardment phase or combat step. The first time an artillery unit moves or fires, you mark it with this first fire. Okay, now you'll note that mortar, there's an exception to this in the mortar thing, but he's not going to be moving. Basically, this just kind of helps you keep track of which artillery units have fired off. The second time it moves or fires, place a final fire on it. If there's a final fire marker, it cannot be moved or use its bombardment strength. Any type of movement counts as movement for the purposes of this rule. So if he's going to bombard, we're going to put this on top here, right, just to kind of let us know. And then we're going to pick our target, which will be there. And that's pretty much the basics of how you pick a target and kind of use those tokens to mark what you're going to be doing there. So you can use any or all of your available artillery or mortar units, observation, gunship, helicopters, and any number of air points to bombard enemy units. You have to declare it all before you resolve it. Okay? Now you need a spotter. You have to have a friendly unit adjacent to the target hex, or else you get a +1 die roll. The lower the die roll on the bombardment table, the better. I do have a spotter, so I'm good there. Okay? You total the bombardment strength points of the bombarding units, and you find the total at the top of the column of the bombardment support table. Okay, so we only have 2, you know, not the strongest. It is just a mortar. We only have 2, so we're going to be looking here There's no modifiers to the die roll, as you can see. That does not take effect. We're good there, and that does not take effect. We're going to be rolling here and looking for a result. And that is basically how we do this first little part. There's some other, you know, iffy things about what happens if you get certain results like an F and things like that. But right now we're just mainly focusing on just this little intro. And also you cannot split artillery fire, so I can't go 1 and 1 on a different hex. I'm trying to think of what else. Bombardment does take effect with the defense value of the hex. So we will be checking the defense value of the hex, which is, we're at the T plantation, that's a 2, and I'll show you how that works out. All right, let's see what we get. Now, I did this the other day, and I rolled a 1, and it was a bad news for the Americans. Well, I have a dice tower, and I completely missed. Okay, all right. A 4. All right. A 4 is going to give us the number 1. All right. The number 1 is the possible losses on the target, depending on the terrain it occupies. To determine the target losses, divide the number result by the TDV and drop all fractions. So we're going to be dividing 1 by 2. And of course, gives us 0.5. We drop all fractions. No effect. And yesterday, I rolled really well, and I had to flip the artillery unit. Took a step loss. I had to actually flip it over, and that's where I stopped because I had done some other things wrong. But okay, so we've got first fire marker on there. The mortar's done. Let me just double check the mortar rules. Yeah, mortars will not get these first fire or final fire markers when they move, only when they're used in offensive or defensive bombardment. Whereas these, if they move, they get that marker because, you know, these are the big boys. They got to take time to set up and get ready to fire again. Mortars can move and not take that first fire marker. I believe that there was some historical data on that artillery unit. I think 12.11 they point out here, if I can remember. Let me see here. There was something in the book I wanted to read. Yeah. Most of the artillery pieces involved in the Iadrang battles were 105s. This battery here, however, has 155s, which could not easily be depressed far enough for defensive bombardment fire, so you cannot use that in this scenario. And I think, if I remember, I'll put up a picture here in the video of the 155s. And I think we're all set. Okay, so the bombardment phase is over. Now we're going to go to what's called the coordination roll. And the coordination roll is basically a roll that you make before combat that kind of tells you what kind of shape your attack's in and how well coordinated it's going to be. All right, and on that, it's going to be page 10, 7.0 for the rules. Now, some things should be pointed out here. You'll notice that we go right to an assault segment. Okay, you don't get to pick like maneuver or assault. It's just assault. Some of the rules for assault, only 4 stacking points can assault a hex per turn. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So what I did was, you can only pick 4 points to attack. All these units are listed as being on the setup, so you can see those here. So if you're wondering when you play this, like, well, I can only use 4 points, why are they giving me all these units? That is because they come in 6B. So, you know, it's a little bit of a nitpick thing. I was overthinking it, but so here's my 4 points. We're assaulting here. Now they do give you this spiffy little battle board. Okay, so you could, if you wanted to, put the defender here and then put your units that are assaulting, you know, what's happening in the combat, what they're going to do. So I would stack all 4 right here, and there's no one left behind. But I mean, we don't need to use the battle board. The battle board's for when it gets super, you know, a lot of counters stacking up and stuff like that. So we mark the hex that we're assaulting, and we point it toward the hex there, kind of like East Front system, you know, the declared attack. So just a note on that. Okay. So just some notes about assault. Now, the other rules about assault that I missed the last time I did this were, let me see if I can remember what it was. It was the 4 points. Yeah, that was it. Okay. My question was originally, I was kind of confused, like, is that 4 points from just a hex or 4 points total? It is indeed 4 points total. The coordination roll is done once per hex that's attacked. You don't roll, like say these guys were assaulting, you don't roll again, you just do it once per hex. So it's one coordination roll and 4 points total that can do an assault. And that's what we're forced to do here because of the scenario rules. It starts with a assault combat segment. It goes right to that. Okay, and they basically want to introduce the mechanics to you here. Now there's a little rule called combat refusal, but remember, the objective of this scenario, victory conditions, whichever side holds hex 3909, which is this one. I don't want to do combat refusal. The Americans are not going to retreat. So that's not even included in this scenario, nor is it an option. Now, for attack coordination, if there's an NVA HQ within the range of attacking stacks during the attack coordination portion of the friendly combat phase, the NVA player rolls a die and will compare it to the headquarters efficiency rating. Okay, if 2 or more friendly HQs are within command range, only one of them can be used. Now, command range is traced as a path of hexes from the HQ to the attacking hex. But here you'll notice that there are no VC HQs or anything like that. So this is not going to be having the benefit of the headquarters unit. Okay, so the roll that we have to get is below 3, I believe. And there is a basic, if you don't meet any of the requirements to be coordinated, such as out of command and things like that, you're going to have to use these numbers right here, 5 and 3. You'll notice that the Americans aren't listed on there. If it is a US only attack, it's always fully coordinated. Okay. If units from 2 or more battalions are involved, make an efficiency check against the highest one to determine the attack coordination. If it's ARVN only or South Vietnam, they're fully coordinated if the colonel for the South Vietnamese, Colonel Truong, I believe his name is stacked with them. Otherwise, you have to roll the nominal value. So, all right, we need to make a roll here, and we'll be rolling, trying to get below 3 to see if this is coordinated. Pardon me here, let me just get my die. Yeah, and I do want to make a point earlier that I screwed up on. I showed you guys a 6-sided die with a 4. I actually did roll a 10-sided die that comes with the game, but when I picked up the die thing, the tower, the 6-sided die was still in there, and I showed you the wrong die. Just a heads up on that in case anyone's flipping out right now. It's always a 10-sided die in this game. All right, so let's go. So this is bad, a 3 on a 10-sided die. Let's see if I can get this. I rolled a 6. Okay, so this is not going to be coordinated. If you equal the ER, it's coordinated but without support. It could be partially coordinated, but I failed miserably. It's completely uncoordinated. If the coordination die roll is greater than the efficiency rating by 1, the attack is uncoordinated. This allows the attacker to attack with all the units that declared combat, but without maneuver combat fire support. Additionally, the attack is handicapped as follows. There's a +1 DRM to all attacker die rolls, including efficiency checks. There's a -1 DRM to defender die rolls. All right, so it is not coordinated. It's very hard to get below a 3 or try to equal a 3. No coordination here, which is kind of typical of how the battle went with the VC, and just not the best coordination, especially early on in the war. They learned better as the war went on how to fight us effectively. Now, there is a coordination roll that is so bad that you're forced to do a frontal assault. And that's pretty much what happened here. Now, in this scenario, I have to start with this assault counter already on a unit. So they're kind of assuming that, it's that bad. There's no other options. If the coordination die roll is greater than the ER by 2 or more, the attack is an uncoordinated frontal assault. The defender must choose all units that were marked for combat, assault, or maneuver in any one of the attacking hexes to perform an assault combat. So basically, if I had maneuver planned and I was planning all this cool stuff, I'd have to flip it to assault and it becomes a frontal assault. But here you have to start with this counter already out because they just want you to straight up do an assault. All right, and I believe that is here on the setup list. You can see within stacking limits, at least one unit must be marked with an assault marker. Okay. All right, so there's no maneuver combat, basically. All right. And since our roll was still bad, we still keep those DRM effects from the uncoordinated attack. They still count. So coordination roll, you can beat. You can go less than the efficiency rating to get fully coordinated. If you equal it, it's partially coordinated. If you get one above the efficiency rating, it's an uncoordinated attack. If you go 2 or more, it switches to an uncoordinated frontal assault. So just remember that when you're making those coordination rolls, because it could change the whole outlook of the battle in the way you had it planned. And the uncoordinated frontal assault where you roll 2 or more is very bad because all units in other hexes that declared combat against the defending stack cannot attack, nor can they attack a different stack. So if you had marked these guys and you got an uncoordinated frontal assault result because you rolled so bad, they suddenly cannot attack. So it does change a lot. I should note as a historical reference here, after the battle, the Viet Cong and the NVA, they reviewed the campaign and they were disturbed by leadership problems that surfaced during the campaign. All 3 regimental commanders, as well as junior officers, were reprimanded or criticized for their handling of the campaign. I'm going to bet it was probably a lot more than being reprimanded, if you know what I'm saying. All right, so let me get back to here. Let me see if this helps. There we go. All right, turn the flash on. Okay, now the procedure for assault combat, if I can find, what did I do with it? Oh, I think I lost. There we go. The first thing we need to do is defender allocates and resolves air and artillery for defensive bombardment. Now that is why they have given the American player 10 air points. Okay, those are going to be used. All right, we're going to use everything we can get. Broken arrow, drop that right on my location. All right, so let's see how that works. The defender totals the defense strength of his stack and then rolls a die on the assault combat results table, and the attacker immediately applies these losses to his force. So there's going to be some pre-assault fire going on here as the attacking player goes in. They're going to take some casualties. So allocate and resolve defense bombardment. Let's see how that's done. Now, normally the defending player can allocate bombardment strength of up to 2 eligible in-range artillery units, but like we said, we cannot use this. Any helicopters and any number of air points to bombard the assaulting units. So we're going to get an airstrike coming in, boom, and back out. All right, and that's 10 points. The American player may allocate any number of artillery units in range. Bombardment's resolved in the same manner as above, except the TDV for the attackers is always considered to be 2. All right, so no matter what terrain they're in, their terrain defense value is 2. I'm assuming that's because they're moving and on the move and stuff like that. So basically, this is going to be a 10-point bombardment. Let's see what we can do. All right, planes are coming in. Let's see what happens. We're going to make a roll here. And I don't believe there's any modifiers. Let me just double check. Not that I can tell. Oh, also as a note real quick. If a hex containing the U.S. Brigade HQ is being attacked, helicopters based there can provide defensive bombardment and maneuver combat support for that hex only. So just a heads up on that. There's a special rule where they talk about the HQ, if it's involved here. If there's helicopters here, they're kind of hemmed in, circling over that hex, providing the assault in that hex. All right, so let's see what we get. Let me get the 10-sided die and make sure that's the only one in the tray this time. All right, we have a bombardment strength of 10. Now this is going to cause some casualties, I'm thinking. We're on this column here. this is going to do something. We'll see. We don't want to get down here. We want to get up here. If we get a 2, we can at least inflict a step loss because they have a trained defense value of 2. All right. I got a 6, which is not bad. Just to make sure. There you go. It's a 10-sided die this time. I don't know what I was thinking before. Pulled the wrong die out or something because they were both 4s. So that's how my mind works. All right. So we got a 6. A 6 on that 10 column is a 2. And that's kind of what we wanted, right? We wanted to at least get something. And that's a 1-step loss. So you take the 2 and you divide it by the defender's always TDV of 2. All right, the owner removes the losses from his assaulting units immediately before the dies are resolved. So let's see. It's going to be a step loss, but the way I've set this up, I've taken their best units. And, yep, there we go. So we're just going to flip that over. So the airplanes did their thing. I was kind of hoping for something better, like a lower roll, but what are you going to do, right? Okay, and these guys will fly off and used. Okay. Now we can continue with the rest of the assault. We do have 1 weakened unit. Not sure that's going to help too much, but let's find out. Now, normally there's a maneuver combat support where you can allocate things to maneuver combat support, but that's not going to take place here because our coordination roll is so bad anyway that all we can do is assault. So we're going to kind of ignore that. All right, so that's defensive bombardment. So not bad, right? We can deal with that. We don't have any first fire markers or anything like that to put down because all the United States has got is air power, and we use that already. Now, you might be thinking, what happens if an artillery unit is attacked? Well, they do get to add their defense strength to the defense of the hex, and that's on that's 10.4.6 on page 15. Just a heads up, because sometimes, in some games, when a lone artillery counter is attacked or something weird like that, it gets wiped out. So, all right, let's see what else we got left to do here. Yeah, pretty much after the defensive bombardment, we just go on to the assault combat. All right, we're done with that. The defender totals the defense strength of his stack and rolls 1 die on the results table. The attacker applies losses to his force. So now we get rifle fire and fun things like that. So that was the defensive bombardment coming in, and now there's rifle fire coming out of the hex. All right, we have a paltry 3 defense. Oh boy. So we're going to be looking at assault combat. We're going to be rolling a die here. Not looking like we're going to be able to do anything. Some of the modifiers. Let's take a look. No ambush. Attacking hex over 2. Armor attacking in clear or T plantation. That doesn't go to us. These are defenders. Okay. -1 if the attacker is uncoordinated. Well, heck yeah, we do get that. There's no patrol marker. No fatigued. All modifiers are cumulative but cannot be greater than +3 or less than -3. All right. Excellent. So there's a -1 to the roll because the attacker is uncoordinated. And we read that earlier in the coordination roll. That was one of the penalties they have to deal with. Let's roll a die. I got really one of the worst rolls ever. 8. So you can see my bad luck is back. So that's a 7. No effect on the defensive fire coming out of here. We just got people grabbing guns. The HQ's like, oh, what the hell? And it's just a mess. Okay, so we finished the defensive player firing out of the hex, and now the attacker's going to total the remaining attack strength of his units, and then he's going to roll on the table. And there are some penalties here to the VC attack, so let's add stuff up. All right, we've got 2, 4, 5, 7. All right. Now, what I find interesting about this game that I like already, I don't have to make freaking odds ratios, which I love. So we've got 7, but let's take a look at the DRMs just to see here. If uncoordinated, +1, armor attacking in clear or T plantation, nope. Terrain effects. Let's take a look at the terrain effects. The terrain effects for T plantation on assault combat effects are NE, which is no effect. Womp. Okay. That's on our chart there. All right, so it looks like we just have +1. The VC player is now going to roll. He got a 3. And that's gonna cause some losses here, but it's not as bad as we thought, right? Remember, 2, 4, 6, 7. We got a total of 3. I rolled a 2 plus 1. And we got here. Oh. One. So that is a 1-step loss. Now, the defender applies these losses right now, and I'm going to put that here. We're going to flip that. We don't want to wipe out that HQ. We're going to flip that artillery to its weak side. Okay. Each player makes an efficiency check with their highest ER unit. All right. So we got 4s, and we got 5s there. What is that for? Well, what's going to happen now is we're going to roll efficiency checks, and if we make these checks, we get to go again on the assault table. If both sides fail, the assault ends, and basically the scenario is over, and I win against myself because they didn't take the hex. So let's see what happens here. All right, now you remember that the attack was uncoordinated for the VC, so there's a +1 die roll, +1 to the die roll when they do this check, and that goes back to 7.4.3. There's a +1 DRM to all attacking die rolls, including efficiency checks. All right, so they need to get, we could either just say they need to get below a 3, or we'll roll and see what happens here with +1. All right, a 4, normally, okay, +1 is 5. They do not make their efficiency check, okay? And remember, it's equal to or lower on this. All right, now the American player has a 5, and they get -1 due to the horrible attack coming in. So the Americans are going to roll there. And they got a 7 -1 is 6. Both sides have failed the assault, continuing the assault, right? If both sides do not pass the check, the assault combat is over. In each step, the owning player may allocate losses as he desires. Okay, so that is it. And that is our little scenario where the VC, due to very uncoordinated attacks, were not able to take out the steadfast Americans. I'm not even going to try to say that name. In the tea plantation, minor assault, and they held out. Thanks mainly to my crappy die rolling. Now, last night I tried this, and I rolled really bad for the Americans. And they had already, this unit had lost a step, so here they would have lost another step, right? And they would have been bad. Not good for the Americans there. So that is the little scenario in Silver Bayonet and some of the things to look out for. A good example of assault combat, how the defensive bombardment works. If you've played this game, let me know if I screwed anything up. I think I got it right. I do believe there's also a walkthrough of this very scenario on the GMT site, inside GMT or whatever, where Mitchell typed up a sort of the same thing. Maybe I set up wrong, but I just basically took the 4 best units I had and made them assault. So, all right, I had to ask some questions on Con Sim World about that 4-point restriction and all that fun stuff. I think I got that part nailed down. All right, so I'm going to come back to Silver Bayonet. I'm still looking for that great Vietnam game. So we'll see what happens. I got some quick looks going up after this video, so kind of stay tuned. I'm going to have some auto videos, scheduled to go off this weekend. All right, and if you want to see more Silver Bayonet, let me know. We're trying to hit that Vietnam stride. Not having much luck. Just not having much luck. All right, thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know how we're doing. Bye.